Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so Battlefield Hardline, which is available on almost everything PC, 360, PS3. I have played the game pretty extensively on both Xbox One and PlayStation 4. And I have to say, I really, really rather like it. I think it's an extremely strong multiplayer package, but everyone who has been saying since day one that this isn't really a Battlefield game, they are dead right. Because in many ways, this could have been Medal of Honor Hardline. It's a game that frequently feels like it's still chasing that well-worn Call of Duty dollar, and you know, when it's at its very best, it doesn't really feel like Battlefield in the slightest, to be honest. But first of all, I just want to talk about the single-player campaign, because this is a game made by Visceral, who made the excellent 3 Dead Space. I mean, I thought all 3 of them were excellent Dead Space games. And the third Army of Two game, which I really enjoyed, despite the fact that it was outrageously stupid, but incredibly slick and very, very well made. The Hardline's campaign has been marketed really well. The official reveals and the trailers for the campaign side of things they've made it look really intriguing, and EA has done something incredibly clever here by making the first hour or so available to EA Access subscribers on Xbox One. Because the first hour of the game is genuinely intriguing. I've played the first hour thinking I've never played a cop game before. I've never actually felt like a policeman in a game before, and in this I really did. And that's primarily down to the fact that I think you can arrest almost every non-player character in the campaign rather than shooting them. So you can play almost the whole game as a stealth game, more or less. Okay. And the story at first seems like it might actually be quite compelling. The actors are really strong. Benito Martinez is in it, who's he's David Acevedo in The Shield, which I think he'll never escape that role. But the whole thing's presented really nicely. It's got this kind of Netflix style presentation where between chapters a little ticker will come up and say it's counted down to the next chapter, and there are like story recaps when you jump in after a break. It's just a really strong looking package and a really strong start, but after that it goes right down the fucking toilet. I mean, the campaign in Hardline is not even as good as the campaign in Medal of Honor Warfighter, and in fact I think it's far worse than that game.
Really? Which one's that? Is that the first or second one?
The second one that I actually thought was okay, but everybody hated. I didn't love it or anything, but I thought it was competent, and this is worse than that as far as I'm concerned. I mean, there is a nice bit of symmetry, I suppose, because the single-player campaigns in DICE's Battlefield games, they felt like they were forced to make them at gunpoint or something, and so does this. It just has no idea what it wants to be. It's insanely repetitive, and a lot of it's just unbelievably boring. There's one mission where you spend about 15-20 minutes boating around the Miami Everglades, like just tagging batches of loose contraband, and it's the most unthrilling thing in the world. The whole game feels like a lot of it should have been chopped out, and the plot, which sort of started so well, it's really crap. It really quickly dissipates into double crosses, and then triple crosses, and then quadruple crosses, and then pretend double crosses to see if that guy's on the level, and then joke triple crosses hard. And I was like, what? Pac-Man has a better story than this. It's just people either double-crossing each other or pretending to double-cross. It's just, I mean, it is rubbish. And the game itself is just kind of like a Fisher-Price version of Far Cry. You walk into an area, you walk up to people, you arrest them, you scan the environment for clues, and then you move on. And in the end, the most interesting thing about the lead character is that, where does he keep all of those handcuffs? You can detain like 20 criminals in a small area. He could be using cable ties, but then there's this handcuff sound effects. And the other thing is, when the criminals, when you detain them, they just lie on the floor, handcuffed, and after a few seconds they fall asleep. It's really dumb. I just like I went into like a drug compound and I arrested like 20 guys, and as I was leaving, I turned around and there's just all these bodies sleeping on the floor. Just like, if one of you just went, "Oh help!" because there's somebody, you know, it's just confused. And anyway, the story mode is actually called, rather than being called campaign or story mode, it's called episodes, which kind of suggests that there's going to be more of it. And I hope to God there isn't, because it's genuinely terrible. A friend of mine came round when I was playing it the other night, and after about 2 minutes he just said, "Why are you playing this?" And I didn't have a decent answer for him, unfortunately. So, but I mean, true to form, the single player is tripe, but the multiplayer, I think, is excellent, and in that sense, at least, it's a Battlefield game. But the multiplayer, I think, in Hardline owes a debt to the biggest debt that it owes to anything is search and destroy mode from Call of Duty. Because my favourite 2 modes in the game are called Crossfire and Rescue, and in Crossfire one of you plays as like a snitch with a golden gun and your team have to get you to an extraction point while another team tries to do exactly the same thing. And in Rescue mode, one team has to save hostages before leading them to an extraction point and the other team tries to stop them. And both of those modes are 5v5, there are no respawns and rounds are over really quickly, it's really, really fast, so it doesn't feel like Battlefield in the slightest, but they are fantastic. The map design is excellent across the board. Every map in the game at launch is just terrific, and at least 2 or 3 of them are classics. There's one called The Block, which is this really tight area in like an inner city housing project, and people will buy servers just to play that map on Deathmatch over and over and over again. And also there's a map called Everglades, and it feels like it was custom made for Hotwire mode, but because there are jumps and hazards all around like the roads on the outskirts. There are moments where it felt like a Mario Kart track or something. It was just absolutely brilliant. But the class system, Battlefield's class system, has been really heavily simplified, and I think that's where the game will probably lose favour with like the really long-term hardened Battlefield players, because the class system is Battlefield to most people, and it really has been stripped right down. You basically don't have access to any really heavy-duty equipment, so there are far fewer guns, there are no mortars, or RPGs now are basically power weapons because they're only available from specific pickup points on each map. And I think that almost certainly that's mainly to protect vehicles in Hotwire, because if RPGs, you could select RPGs, that would just be like a rocket festival. You'd spawn and there'd just be rockets flying all over the place, so that's a smart decision. Spawn beacons have been given to engineers, or mechanics as they're called here, I suppose to combat recon snipers sort of camping. And the recon class, professional class, whatever, they don't have a tugs or a MAV, they don't have a very good spotting device, but they've got this little camera device which isn't anywhere near as beneficial. So, I mean, essentially you have far fewer options than you normally do in a Battlefield game, but I think Visceral, they've been really smart about what they've changed and what they've removed, because it does feel very, very balanced. I mean, if people are hoping to find exploits in this, and I'm sure most people do when they start a new Battlefield game, I suspect it's going to be harder than ever in Hardline. I guess the only issue is that on the smaller game types I mentioned, almost everyone plays as a medic, because there's nothing more valuable in a game that doesn't have respawns than a medic, because it's like a second life essentially. But that just means that you can absolutely bamboozle a team by using the other classes. So I didn't find that to be a problem at all really either. Presentation wise, the game, it's fine. I played on Xbox One and PS4. It's fine on both. There are brief moments when it kind of looks slightly better than Battlefield 4, and there are other times where it looks considerably worse than Battlefield 4. But it runs so much faster. I mean, you spawn in fast. Everything's quicker. So that's not something that bothered me too much. The online is not perfect, but there's not too much to complain about. I mean, 64-player team deathmatch, that has crashed on me quite a few times over the last few days. It does that traditional Battlefield thing where everyone's suddenly running on the spot and then it goes to black screen, so it still does that thing. The mechanic's default weapon is really overpowered at present, so I hope they fix that. And assist points don't register often at the moment. And I've seen some really bloody weird things. Whenever I've died near a zip line, the kill cam can sometimes attach itself to the zip line, and it's just funny more than anything. I mean, it made me laugh a couple of times, but on the whole, the game runs more than fine online. So, yeah, I mean, basically, I think Hardline is really something. I like all of the gameplay modes that are in it at present. I like every map quite a bit, and it's really got its hooks into me. I mean, I've had it for almost a week, and on 2 occasions, I think actually maybe 3, I've gone on for a couple of games in the evening and ended up playing until the early hours. It's really good, really smart, I think, and although it really isn't a Battlefield game at all, despite the presence of Conquest and whatnot, I have to recommend it. It's very much its own thing, but I really bloody like it, and yeah, I think people should get involved.